Hugh Jackman just walked off Deadpool 3, furious that Disney cast Pedro Pascal as Wolverine.
I am your coolest daddy.
This is wrong for a number of reasons. I'm a little drunk. I thought I could get drunk.
He literally told Disney, "I won't be part of this."
Jacqueline, I swear to you, when I said I was done, I really thought I was done.
But what he said to Ryan Reynolds after learning about Pascal's casting, that's the part that shocked everyone. Let's get into the details. The betrayal. The unthinkable has happened. Hugh Jackman, the man who literally is Wolverine, the actor who spent 17 grueling years transforming his body, his soul, and his entire career trajectory around those adamantium claws, is walking away from Disney. Not from the character he loves, not from the fans who worship him, but from the Mouse House itself. And the reason? A casting decision so monumentally tone-deaf, so fundamentally insulting to everything Logan represents, that industry insiders are calling it the biggest behind-the-scenes meltdown Marvel has witnessed since the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit saga exploded across every entertainment headline. Sources close to the production claim Hugh Jackman is absolutely disgusted, completely betrayed, and has flat out refused to appear in any future MCU property if Pedro Pascal remains attached to the Wolverine legacy. This isn't Hollywood drama. This isn't manufactured controversy for clicks. This is a genuine, seething, deeply personal rejection of what Disney has chosen to do with one of the most beloved characters in superhero cinema history. But before we dive into the explosive details of exactly what went down behind those closed Marvel Studios doors, before we reveal the precise moment Hugh Jackman discovered he was being replaced, and before we show you the unprintable reaction that allegedly followed, we need to understand how we got here. Because this betrayal, this absolute destruction of trust between an actor and the studio that made him a global icon, didn't happen overnight. It's been building for years, simmering beneath the surface of Hollywood's most carefully managed public relations machine. Let's rewind to the moment that started it all. The moment Hugh Jackman's heart opened back up to the possibility of returning to the role that defined his career.
I was on my way, I was just driving, and literally, just like a bolt of lightning, came this knowing deep in my gut that I wanted to do this film with Ryan, for Deadpool and Wolverine to come back together. And Jacqueline, I swear to you, when I said I was done, I really thought I was done. But in the back of my head, ever since I saw Deadpool 1, I was like, those two characters together, I knew it. I knew the fans wanted it.
Listen to that voice. Listen to the genuine emotion, the sincerity, the absolute love radiating from every single word. This wasn't a man coming back for a paycheck. This wasn't a calculated career move designed to capitalize on nostalgia or franchise recognition. This was an artist who had found his way back to a character that had become part of his DNA, part of his very identity as a performer and as a human being. Hugh Jackman didn't just play Wolverine. He became Wolverine. He lived with Logan's pain, carried his rage, channeled his vulnerability, and transformed his own body into a weapon of mass entertainment that could slice through audiences' hearts with the same precision as those iconic claws. For 17 years, through multiple timelines, alternate universes, and increasingly complex narrative structures, Jackman was the definitive interpretation of James Logan Howlett. So when Disney announced they were moving forward with Pedro Pascal as the new face of Wolverine, it wasn't just a casting change. It was character assassination. It was legacy destruction. It was the corporate equivalent of taking everything Hugh Jackman had built, everything he had sacrificed, everything he had given of himself to create the most beloved interpretation of this character, and handing it over to someone whose entire public persona represents the antithesis of everything Wolverine stands for. Let's be brutally honest about what Pedro Pascal represents in today's entertainment landscape. He's the carefully manufactured, algorithmically optimized, focus group tested embodiment of what Disney believes modern masculinity should look like. He's soft where Wolverine is hard. He's performative where Logan is authentic. He's designed for social media virality, where Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was crafted for emotional devastation.
I am your coolest slutty daddy.
Yes, I'm a heartthrob.
Those words, cool slutty daddy, coming from the man Disney wants to embody one of the most tortured, complex, psychologically damaged characters in the Marvel universe. Imagine Logan, the haunted Canadian berserker who spent decades running from his own memories, being portrayed by someone whose biggest cultural contribution is turning toxic masculinity into a TikTok-friendly meme format. The disconnect isn't just jarring, it's insulting, not just to Hugh Jackman, but to every single person who found something real, something meaningful, something genuinely powerful in the way Jackman portrayed a man struggling with his own capacity for violence, his own inability to connect, his own deep-seated fear that he was more monster than hero. Industry insiders who spoke off the record reveal that Hugh Jackman personally voiced serious concerns about Pascal's attachment to the project months before any official announcement was made. According to a former production assistant assistant who worked closely with the Deadpool and Wolverine team. Hugh was deeply uncomfortable with the direction they were taking Logan. He said, and I quote, "This isn't Wolverine. This is a BuzzFeed meme in leather." But Disney's response to Jackman's concerns? Complete and total silence. Because for the corporate machine that now controls Marvel's creative output, Pedro Pascal isn't just an actor. He's a message. He's a brand. He's a carefully constructed symbol of everything Disney wants to project about progressive masculinity, political correctness, and algorithmic appeal to the broadest possible demographic. The problem is that Wolverine was never meant to appeal to the broadest possible demographic. He was meant to appeal to the part of us that recognizes pain, that understands rage, that knows what it feels like to be damaged and still fight like hell to do the right thing. Hugh Jackman understood that from day one. He lived it, breathed it, and transformed his entire physical and emotional being to honor it. Pedro Pascal? He's been too busy taking photos without pants and complimenting women's nail art to understand what Wolverine actually represents.
They're very beautiful.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And that's not an exaggeration or a cheap shot. It's a fundamental recognition that these two men exist in completely different universes when it comes to their approach to masculinity, vulnerability, and what it means to embody strength in the face of overwhelming trauma.
This is wrong for a number of reasons. I'm a little drunk. I thought I could get drunk.
That's Pedro Pascal at the SAG Awards. Drunk, rambling, completely unprofessional, and utterly lacking the kind of controlled intensity that defines every single Hugh Jackman public appearance. Imagine that energy being channeled into the role of a character who represents controlled violence. Not just a bad fit, it's a complete fundamental misunderstanding of what made Hugh Jackman's Wolverine work in the first place. And according to multiple sources within the Marvel production ecosystem, that misunderstanding became crystal clear to Hugh Jackman the moment he realized Disney was serious about this casting decision. The breaking point, according to insiders, came during a closed-door meeting between Jackman, Kevin Feige, and several Disney executives. When presented with the Pascal casting as a done deal, Jackman reportedly stood up, looked directly at Feige, and said, "I built Wolverine from the ground up. You don't get to hand it over to someone who thinks it's a fashion role." He walked out of that meeting. He hasn't spoken to Disney leadership since. And according to every source we've managed to contact, he has absolutely zero intention of participating in any Marvel project that features Pedro Pascal as Wolverine. This isn't just a professional disagreement. This is a complete and total rejection of what Disney is trying to do to a character that Hugh Jackman spent nearly 2 decades of his life bringing to authentic, powerful, emotionally devastating life. And the most heartbreaking part? Disney knew exactly what they were doing. They knew Jackman wouldn't approve. They knew the fans would be split. They knew this casting would generate controversy. And engagement generates the kind of algorithmic momentum that Disney believes is more valuable than artistic integrity, legacy protection, or basic respect for the actor who made Wolverine a billion-dollar franchise in the first place. Hugh Jackman gave them 17 years. He gave them his body, his soul, his complete creative commitment. He came back one more time because he believed in the story, believed in the character, believed in giving fans the Deadpool-Wolverine team-up they'd been demanding for years. And Disney repaid that loyalty by handing his life's work over to a man who calls himself Slutty Daddy and posts thirst traps on Instagram. Some betrayals cut so deep that there's no coming back from them. And for Hugh Jackman, this appears to be exactly that kind of wound. The replacement. Let's cut through the carefully orchestrated PR campaign and ask the question that Disney desperately hopes nobody will ask. Who exactly is Pedro Pascal? And how did he become the man chosen to replace one of the most beloved actors in superhero cinema history? Because when you strip away the Vanity Fair photo shoots, the carefully scripted progressive sound bites, and the algorithmically optimized social media presence, what you're left with is a man whose entire public persona has been engineered to appeal to very specific demographics, while maintaining just enough edge to seem authentic. Pedro Pascal isn't just an actor who happened to become famous. He's a product, a carefully constructed, market-tested, focus group-approved product designed to embody everything Disney believes represents the future of masculine heroism. And that product is now being forced onto one of the most complex, psychologically demanding roles in the Marvel universe. The Pedro Pascal phenomenon didn't happen organically. It was manufactured, cultivated, and pushed through a media machine that has spent the last 3 years positioning him as the internet's daddy, the progressive heartthrob, and the new face of emotionally available masculinity. Media outlets from Men's Health to MSNBC have spent countless column inches positioning Pascal as a symbol of modern masculinity, celebrating his emotional vulnerability, his political activism, and his willingness to embrace a version of manhood that prioritizes feelings over traditional masculine archetypes. The problem? Wolverine isn't supposed to represent modern masculinity. He's supposed to represent timeless masculinity, the kind of raw, complicated, deeply... Logan is a man who has lived through multiple multiple wars, watched everyone he's ever loved die, and still finds the strength to protect the innocent. That's not vulnerability. That's strength forged in trauma and tempered by experience. But Disney doesn't want that kind of masculinity anymore. They want Pascal's version, the kind that comes with trigger warnings, therapy speak, and enough progressive credentials to ensure that no Twitter mob will ever come for their billion-dollar investment. Let's examine the evidence of how manufactured Pascal's rise has actually been. In 2020, he appeared in exactly 2 major projects, a supporting role in Wonder Woman 1984 and his breakout performance in The Mandalorian. By 2023, he was being cast in The Last of Us, Fantastic Four, and now Wolverine, a trajectory that would be remarkable for any actor, but becomes suspicious when you consider how aggressively the entertainment media has been pushing his narrative during that same time frame. The Pedro Pascal fatigue phenomenon that's been spreading across social media isn't just about overexposure. It's about the recognition that his omnipresence feels artificial, calculated, and completely disconnected from organic audience demand. When fans start asking, why is this guy in everything? It's usually because someone with serious industry power has decided he should be in everything, and that decision becomes even more problematic when you examine Pascal's actual approach to public persona management, but never so challenging that he threatens Disney's corporate image.
I am your coolest slutty daddy.
Yes, I'm a heartthrob.
That line has become his signature moment, repeated across hundreds of TikTok compilations, Instagram memes, and YouTube reaction videos. But here's what's deeply disturbing about it. Pascal knows exactly what he's doing when he says things like this. He's not being spontaneous or authentic. He's delivering content that his team knows will go viral, that will generate the kind of engagement metrics that translate directly into casting opportunities. This is calculated authenticity, the kind of performative vulnerability that's designed to make audiences feel like they're seeing the real person, while actually revealing absolutely nothing genuine about who he actually is beneath the carefully constructed persona. And when you compare that approach to how Hugh Jackman has conducted himself throughout his career, the contrast is staggering. Jackman never needed to manufacture viral moments or create thirst trap content to maintain his connection with audiences. His authenticity came through his complete commitment to the characters he portrayed, his genuine respect for fans, and his willingness to transform himself physically and emotionally for roles that demanded everything he had to give. The backlash against Pascal's casting has been swift, brutal, and completely predictable to anyone who understands the fundamental disconnect between his public persona and what Wolverine represents. Social media has exploded with memes, critiques, and analysis videos, examining why this casting feels so fundamentally wrong to so many people. One of the most viral critiques came from a commentary video that perfectly captured what many fans have been feeling. When you get older, the less amount of times you should be saying, I am your slutty daddy, right? The amount of times is 0 that you should be saying those words, but it's like -0. The older you get, I don't want no fucking grandpa. Who's your slutty daddy? Not you. Go upstairs and lay down on your bed. That critique isn't just about the specific phrase, it's juvenile and completely inappropriate for a character who represents the kind of weathered, experienced, deeply scarred masculinity that comes from surviving decades of trauma and still choosing to fight for what's right. But the manufactured nature of Pascal's persona becomes even more apparent when you examine his political positioning. His Instagram posts comparing Trump supporters to Nazis, his attacks on J.K. Rowling, and his carefully timed progressive statements all follow the exact same pattern. They generate maximum social media engagement while positioning him as politically bulletproof within Hollywood's current ideological framework. This isn't authentic activism, this is brand management. And with algorithmic approach to public persona, what you get is exactly what Disney wants. An actor who can take on an iconic role without ever risking genuine controversy or challenging anyone's preconceptions about what modern heroism should look like. The most damning evidence of how artificial Pascal's rise has been comes from examining the media coverage surrounding his career trajectory. Men's Health calling him the face of modern masculinity, MSNBC praising his ethic of care, and Vanity Fair positioning him as the masculinity Hollywood needs. All of these outlets received the same PR memo, and they're all pushing the same narrative with the kind of coordinated messaging that only happens when serious industry power is behind a particular agenda.
This is wrong for a number of reasons. I'm a little drunk. I thought I could get drunk. I'm gonna have a panic attack and I'm gonna leave.
Thank you so much!
That's the man Disney wants to embody Wolverine drunk that made Hugh Jackman's portrayal so compelling. Pascal's approach to public appearances is the complete opposite of everything that made Jackman's Wolverine work. Where Logan was controlled violence, Pascal is chaotic vulnerability. Where Jackman brought disciplined intensity, Pascal brings manufactured quirkiness. And the most insulting part of this entire situation is that Disney knows exactly what they're doing. They're not casting Pascal because he's the best actor for the role. They're casting him because he's the safest actor for their brand. He comes pre-approved by the social media algorithm with minimum risk of controversy. But here's what Disney fundamentally misunderstands about Wolverine and about Hugh Jackman's portrayal of the character. The reason Logan resonated with audiences for nearly 2 decades wasn't because he was safe or algorithmically optimized or politically correct. It was because he was dangerous, complicated, and genuinely challenging to both audiences and the actor portraying him. Hugh Jackman spent 17 years exploring what it means to be a man who is capable of incredible violence but chooses to use that capacity to protect others. He examined the psychology of trauma, the weight of immortality, and the burden of being simultaneously the most dangerous and most protective person in any room. That's not content creation, that's artistry. Pedro Pascal's approach to character work is the complete opposite. He takes complex roles and filters them through his established persona, making every character a slightly different variation of the emotionally vulnerable heartthrob archetype that has made him famous. That might work for certain types of projects, but it's completely inappropriate for a character whose entire identity is built around the tension between his capacity for destruction and his commitment to protection. The fan reaction to Pascal's casting has revealed something that Disney clearly didn't anticipate. Audiences can tell the difference between authentic character work and manufactured persona management. They can sense when an actor is genuinely committed to serving a character versus when they're using a character to serve their personal brand. And in Pedro Pascal's case, everything about his public presence suggests that he views Wolverine as another opportunity to expand his influence, rather than another chance to disappear into a role that demands everything an actor has to give. Coming up in Part 3, we're going to reveal exactly what happened when Hugh Jackman discovered he was being replaced, the leaked communications that prove Disney never intended to honor his legacy, and how this controversy represents a much larger battle over the soul of storytelling in modern Hollywood. The fallout from this casting decision is just beginning. The fallout. The silence from Hugh Jackman isn't just deafening, it's calculated, strategic, and more damaging to Disney's narrative than any public statement could ever be. Because in a world where every Hollywood controversy generates immediate Twitter responses, carefully crafted Instagram posts, and diplomatically worded press releases, Jackman's complete and total absence from the conversation surrounding Pedro Pascal's casting sends a message that cuts deeper than any words possibly could. This is a man who has spent his entire career being gracious, professional, and genuinely grateful for every opportunity that came his way. He's the kind of actor who remembers crew members' names, who sends personal thank you notes to fans, who has never said a negative word about any co-star, director, or studio executive in nearly 3 decades of public appearances. His silence isn't accidental or coincidental. It's a deliberate rejection of everything Disney is trying to do with the character that defined his career. And according to sources close to the production, that silence is driving Disney executives absolutely insane because they need Hugh Jackman's blessing. They need his public endorsement. They need him to appear alongside Pedro Pascal in photo ops, to give interviews about passing the torch, to play the role of the gracious veteran actor who's excited to see what the next generation will do with his legacy. Without that validation, Pascal's casting looks exactly like what it is, a corporate decision made without regard for artistic integrity, fan sentiment, or basic respect for the actor who made Wolverine a billion-dollar franchise. But Jackman isn't playing along, and according to multiple industry insiders, he has no intention of ever playing along. Sources who spoke off the record describe a series of increasingly desperate attempts by Disney executives to get Jackman to publicly support Pascal's casting. Phone calls that go unreturned, meeting requests that are politely declined, interview opportunities that are quietly rejected. Every single attempt to leverage Jackman's goodwill and professional reputation to legitimize this casting decision has been met with the kind of absolute silence that can only come from complete and total disgust. The breaking point, according to these same sources, came during a closed-door meeting between Jackman and Kevin Feige that took place approximately 6 weeks before any official announcement about Pascal's involvement. During that meeting, Feige reportedly presented the casting as a done deal and asked Jackman to participate in the transition process. Jackman's response, according to someone who was present for the conversation, was immediate and unequivocal. "If you want Pedro to be Wolverine, fine, but don't expect me to pretend this is Wolverine." He walked out of that meeting and hasn't spoken to Disney leadership since. His representatives have made it clear that he will not participate in any press events, promotional materials, or public appearances related to Pascal's casting. He has effectively severed all professional relationships with Marvel Studios while maintaining his contractual obligations for Deadpool and Wolverine, which, according to sources, will be his final appearance as the character under any circumstances. But the fallout extends far beyond Hugh Jackman's personal rejection of Disney's decision, because the fan response to Pascal's casting has revealed something that Disney clearly wasn't prepared for. Audiences have become sophisticated enough to recognize the difference between authentic storytelling and corporate brand management. The Pedro Pascal fatigue phenomenon that's been spreading across social media platforms isn't just about overexposure or casting disagreements. It's about the recognition that Pascal's omnipresence in popular culture feels artificial, manufactured, and completely disconnected from organic audience demand. When the same actor appears in The Mandalorian, The Last of Us, Fantastic Four, and now Wolverine within the span of 3 years, audiences start asking questions about how Hollywood actually works, and those questions are leading to some uncomfortable answers about the role of algorithmic optimization, demographic targeting, and political messaging in modern casting decisions. Commentary videos analyzing Pascal's rise have generated millions of views, with creators and fans examining everything from his carefully crafted social media presence to his pattern of making politically charged statements that align perfectly with Disney's corporate messaging strategy. The most viral of these analyses pointed out the fundamental disconnect between Pascal's performative vulnerability and the kind of authentic emotional complexity that made Hugh Jackman's Wolverine so compelling. This isn't a man expressing genuine emotion. This is a man who has been coached on how to express emotion in ways that generate maximum social media engagement while minimizing any risk of genuine controversy. That observation cuts to the heart of what makes this casting decision so problematic, because Wolverine isn't supposed to be safe, algorithmically optimized, or designed for maximum demographic appeal. He's supposed to be dangerous, complicated, and genuinely challenging to both audiences and the actor portraying him. Even Ryan Reynolds, who has spent years maintaining careful diplomatic relationships with everyone in Hollywood, has shown signs of discomfort with the direction this controversy has taken. While he hasn't made any public statements about Pascal's casting, his recent comments about wrapping Deadpool and Wolverine have been notably final in their tone.
The year before, he stopped his car, called me and said, "I think you should stop playing Deadpool."
That wasn't just a casual comment about the end of a particular film. That was Reynolds sending a signal that the era of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is definitively over, and that what comes next represents something fundamentally different from what came before. And what comes next, according to industry insiders, is exactly what Disney has been planning all along: a complete rebranding of Wolverine that prioritizes corporate messaging over character integrity, algorithmic appeal over artistic authenticity, and brand safety over the kind of genuine emotional complexity that made Hugh Jackman's portrayal so powerful. The leaked communications that have emerged from within Marvel Studios paint a picture of a company that has become completely disconnected from what made their characters compelling in the first place. Internal emails discussing Pascal's casting focus almost exclusively on demographic data, social media metrics, and political positioning, with virtually no discussion of artistic merit, character integrity, or storytelling authenticity. One particularly damning email, allegedly sent from a Disney executive to Kevin Feige, reportedly stated, "We need someone who can make Wolverine safe for modern audiences while maintaining enough edge to feel authentic. Pascal checks every box we need checked." That sentence reveals everything you need to know about how Disney views beloved characters, not as artistic creations that deserve respect and integrity, but as intellectual property that needs to be optimized for maximum market penetration and minimum risk exposure. Hugh Jackman understood something that Disney's current leadership apparently doesn't. Wolverine was never supposed to be safe for modern audiences. He was supposed to challenge audiences, to force them to confront uncomfortable questions about violence, trauma, masculinity, and what it means to be heroic in a world that often punishes. Heroism, and Logan's character, has generated millions of views. Social media movements like #NotMyWolverine have been trending regularly since the first rumors of Pascal's involvement began circulating. But perhaps most significantly, entertainment industry professionals have begun speaking out about what this casting decision represents for the future of storytelling in Hollywood. Directors, writers, and actors who have worked within the Marvel system have made increasingly pointed comments about the prioritization of corporate messaging over artistic integrity. James Mangold, who directed Logan and understands better than anyone what made Hugh Jackman's portrayal so powerful, made a particularly pointed observation in a recent interview. When you start casting characters based on their social media metrics, rather than their ability to embody the soul of the character, you're not making art anymore, you're making content. That distinction between art and content captures exactly what's at stake in this controversy. Because Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was art, it was a sustained 17-year exploration of trauma, masculinity, mortality, and redemption that challenged both the actor and audiences to confront difficult truths about what it means to be human in an inhuman world. Pedro Pascal's version promises to be content, algorithmically optimized, demographically targeted, politically safe entertainment designed to generate social media engagement while avoiding anything that might genuinely challenge or disturb audiences. The tragedy is that Disney has the resources, the talent, and the platform platform to create art that could honor Hugh Jackman's legacy while pushing the character in new and interesting directions. Instead, they've chosen to prioritize brand management over storytelling, market research over artistic vision, and corporate messaging over authentic character development. Hugh Jackman's silence in the face of this decision isn't just a rejection of Pedro Pascal's casting. It's a rejection of everything Disney represents about the future of storytelling in Hollywood. And for millions of fans who found something genuine and powerful in his portrayal of Logan, that silence speaks louder than any words ever could. Because some legacies are worth protecting, some characters deserve better than being turned into content, and some actors understand that walking away with dignity is better than staying and watching everything you've built get dismantled for the sake of algorithmic optimization. Hugh Jackman built Wolverine from the ground up. He gave the character his body, his soul, and 17 years of his life. And when Disney decided to hand that legacy over to someone who represents everything antithetical to what Logan stands for, he did the only thing a man with integrity could do. He walked away, and in doing so, he reminded us all that some things are more important than money, more valuable than corporate approval, and more meaningful than staying relevant in a system that has lost sight of what made these characters worth caring about in the first place. The era of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is over. What comes next will tell us everything we need to know about whether Hollywood still has room for art, or whether everything will eventually be reduced to content.
A full-scale rebellion is brewing behind the scenes at Marvel as stars declare war on Disney CEO Bob Iger. Jeremy Renner's explosive rejection of Disney's insult offer is just the beginning.
I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money.
Meanwhile, other MCU stars are joining the revolution, publicly condemning Iger's leadership.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic.
The shocking secret meetings, career-ending threats, and the 3 A-list stars ready to walk away forever. This is the Marvel Civil War they don't want you to know about. The shocking revelation. Jeremy Renner's insulting offer. In early May 2025, during an interview with the High Performance app that was shared on TikTok, Renner made the jaw-dropping claim that Disney had offered him only half of his previous salary for a potential second season of the Disney Plus series Hawkeye. This revelation, documented across multiple entertainment news outlets including Hindustan Times, IndieWire, and People, came as a particular shock considering Renner's long-standing position as one of the original Avengers and his significant contribution to the Marvel Cinematic Universe over more than a decade. What makes the situation even more remarkable is the timing and context surrounding Disney's offer. As many of you will recall, Jeremy Renner suffered a near-fatal snowplow accident on New Year's Day 2023, resulting in over 35 broken bones and multiple titanium replacements. The actor endured a grueling rehabilitation journey, which he later detailed in his memoir, My Next Breath, released on April 29, 2024. It was against this backdrop of recovery and resilience that Renner claims Disney approached him with the reduced salary offer. In his own words during the High Performance interview, Renner expressed his disbelief at the proposal.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half?
The actor's pointed reference to his accident adds a particularly poignant dimension to this dispute, suggesting he felt the offer might have been connected to perceptions about his physical capabilities post-recovery. Adding insult to injury, according to Renner, this halved salary was proposed despite expectations for twice the amount of work and an 8-month time commitment for the second season. The stark contrast between increased workload and decreased compensation left the actor feeling that he had no choice but to decline the offer. It's worth noting that Renner was careful to distinguish between Disney's financial department and Marvel Studios in his criticism. This is not Marvel, mind you. This is like just Disney, not even really Disney. It's just the penny pinchers, the accountants, he clarified. This distinction suggests Renner's issue is specifically with the business side of operations, rather than the creative team with whom he's collaborated for years. The actor's response to the offer was unequivocal. He rejected it outright, telling Disney's financial team to go fly a kite, as he colorfully phrased it. Despite this strong stance, Renner emphasized that his love for the Hawkeye character remains unchanged. I still love the character. I'd still love to do it, but I had to defend myself. What makes this situation particularly interesting is that it's not an isolated incident. Industry observers have noted similar patterns with other actors. John Malkovich, who is set to appear in the Fantastic Four First Steps 2025, revealed he had previously turned down Marvel roles for years due to what he perceived as insufficient pay for the demanding nature of superhero productions. If you're going to hang from a crane in front of a green screen for 6 months? Pay me, Malkovich stated, highlighting the physical and time demands these roles often entail. Additionally, reports have suggested that other actors like Hugo Weaving, who played Red Skull, and Carrie Coon have also walked away from Marvel roles over what they considered lowball offers, though specific details of these negotiations remain less public. To fully appreciate the context of Renner's situation, it's important to consider the typical compensation structure for MCU stars. Top earners like Robert Downey Jr. reportedly received around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, while Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson have commanded approximately $20 million per film in recent years. These figures have been widely reported in industry publications, creating a stark contrast with Renner's reported offer. For his part, Renner's MCU earnings have reportedly ranged from $3 million to $15 million for previous films, making the alleged pay cut for Hawkeye Season 2 all the more dramatic. While exact figures for his Season 1 compensation haven't been publicly disclosed, industry estimates suggest the proposed reduction would represent a significant financial step backward for the actor. This controversy has certainly caught the attention of fans, many of whom have expressed strong support for Renner on social media platforms. On X, formerly Twitter, posts expressing disappointment with Marvel's decision have gained significant traction. One notable comment urged, "Pay that man his money," while another user criticized Marvel directly, "Hey, at Marvel Studios, that's messed up, no? Maybe next time you cannot insult one of your original and longest-lasting cast members in a time when you're not exactly lighting the world on fire." Particularly noteworthy is how fans have connected Renner's situation to his personal challenges following the accident. The sentiment that Disney should be more considerate given his recovery journey has resonated strongly within the fan community, with some expressing that the offer feels particularly callous in light of what the actor has endured. Some fans have even speculated about potential future negotiations, with one commenting, "After the reveal and Thunderbolts, and Haley using her new leverage after Hash Sinners, he'll get paid." This references Haley Steinfeld's rising star power following her success in projects outside the MCU, suggesting her increased leverage might indirectly benefit Renner in future discussions. Disney, for their part, has remained relatively quiet about the specific details of the negotiation. An unnamed Disney insider cited by IndieWire disputed Renner's claims, but notably failed to provide specific details to counter his statements. This lack of transparency has only fueled further speculation about the nature of the offer and Disney's approach to talent compensation more broadly. The situation raises important questions about how actors are valued in an era of expanding streaming content and changing business models. For a character like Hawkeye, who has been part of the MCU since nearly the beginning, fans might reasonably expect compensation to reflect that long-standing contribution to the franchise's success. Adding another layer to this already complex situation is Renner's potential involvement in future MCU projects beyond Hawkeye. Despite the salary dispute, there have been indications that Renner might return as Hawkeye in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. In an August 2024 interview, Renner hinted at his involvement, stating he is really excited and thinks he'll probably be doing it. This suggests that while the Hawkeye series negotiations have reached an impasse, doors remain open for Renner's return in other capacities. Production on Avengers Doomsday reportedly began in April 2025, with a cast including Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm Invisible Woman, and Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, Captain America, among others. So what does the future hold for Hawkeye in the MCU if Jeremy Renner were to permanently step away? The most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, played by Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Hawkeye series already established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition path. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. As we continue to monitor this developing story, it's clear that the relationship between major studios and their talent remains a delicate balance of creative partnership and business negotiation. A pattern emerges: Marvel's history of financial disputes with stars. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has generated unprecedented box office success over its nearly two-decade existence, has not been immune to behind-the-scenes financial conflicts. In fact, a careful examination of the franchise's history reveals that Jeremy Renner's situation, while certainly dramatic, follows a well-established pattern of salary disputes that have periodically threatened to disrupt the carefully constructed MCU narrative. Perhaps the most famous or infamous early example of such a dispute involved Terrence Howard, who portrayed James Rhodes, later War Machine, Machine in the original Iron Man 2008. What many casual fans may not realize is that Howard was initially paid more than Robert Downey Jr. for the first film, a reflection of Howard's star power at the time, and the perceived risk associated with casting Downey, who was then in the process of rebuilding his career. However, following the unexpected mega success of Iron Man, Howard's compensation was significantly reduced for future projects, reportedly due to budget reallocations that favored increasing Downey's salary. This dramatic pay cut ultimately led to Howard's departure from the franchise, with Don Cheadle stepping in to take over the role of James Rhodes' War Machine for Iron Man 2 and all subsequent appearances. Howard has been vocal about his frustration with this situation over the years, making it clear that financial considerations played a major role in his exit from what would become one of cinema's most successful franchises. This early instance set a precedent that we would see repeated in various forms throughout the MCU's evolution. Another high-profile dispute that captivated industry attention involved Scarlett Johansson, who had been portraying Natasha Romanoff Black Widow since Iron Man 2. In July 2021, Johansson took the extraordinary step of filing a lawsuit against Disney, alleging breach of contract related to the release strategy for her solo film Black Widow. At the heart of Johansson's claim was the decision to release Black Widow simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus Premier Access during the COVID-19 pandemic. The actress alleged this dual release strategy reduced box office revenue, which directly impacted her back-end compensation package that was tied to theatrical performance. Reports suggested Johansson sought approximately $80 million in damages on top of her $20 million base salary for the film. The dispute was ultimately settled in October 2021, with the terms undisclosed but estimated by industry insiders to exceed $40 million. While the specific circumstances of Johansson's case differ from Renner's current situation, both illustrate the ongoing tension between talent compensation and evolving business models in the entertainment industry, particularly as streaming has disrupted traditional revenue streams. Perhaps the most directly comparable precedent to the current Renner situation occurred following the monumental success of The Avengers 2012, which grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide and cemented the MCU as a box office juggernaut. Reports from 2013 indicated that several key Avengers actors, including Chris Hemsworth, Thor, and Chris Evans, Captain America, found themselves in contentious negotiations with Marvel over compensation for future appearances. These actors had signed what were later characterized as ungenerous contracts early in the MCU's development, before its financial success was assured. As the franchise grew exponentially in value, negotiations became increasingly tense. Marvel reportedly offered to triple Chris Hemsworth's contract, though they were not contractually obligated to do so in recognition of his growing importance to the franchise. Robert Downey Jr., who had shrewdly negotiated a percentage of profits rather than just a flat fee for his later appearances, leveraged his position as the MCU's center of gravity to secure increasingly substantial deals, reportedly earning around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, a far cry from the $500,000 he reportedly received for the first Iron Man film. These historical disputes highlight a recurring pattern in Marvel's approach to talent compensation. Initial contracts tend to favor the studio, with renegotiations becoming necessary as the franchise's success grows and actors gain leverage. The frequency of these disputes suggests a systematic approach to talent management that prioritizes controlling costs even as the overall franchise generates extraordinary revenues. But financial tensions within the MCU extend beyond just the major stars. Recent controversies have involved actors who, while not headlining their own films, have played crucial supporting roles in the franchise. For instance, reports emerged in 2025 that Carrie Coon had declined to return to the MCU over a salary dispute, though specific details remained private. Similarly, Hugo Weaving, who memorably portrayed the Red Skull in Captain America: The First Avenger, did not return for subsequent appearances, with financial considerations reportedly playing a role in that decision. The situation becomes even more complex when examining how Marvel's strategy has evolved in more recent phases of the MCU. Industry reports suggest that for Phase 4 and beyond, Marvel aimed to decrease tentpole actor salaries, part of a broader strategy emphasizing character brands rather than star power. This approach reportedly resulted in lower salaries for actors like Salma Hayek, Angelina Jolie, and Richard Madden compared to what earlier MCU stars had commanded at similar points in their tenure. This strategic shift appears to reflect Disney's growing confidence in the Marvel brand itself, rather than the individual actors portraying the characters. While this might make financial sense from a corporate perspective, it risks alienating the very talents who bring these beloved characters to life, as we've seen with Renner's public rebuke of what he perceived as an inadequate offer. The disparity in compensation among MCU actors has also drawn increasing attention from fans and industry observers. For example, while Robert Downey Jr. earned approximately $75 million for Avengers Endgame, Chris Evans reportedly made around $20 million, and Chadwick Boseman earned approximately $2 million for Black Panther, a film that grossed over $1.3 billion worldwide. These significant gaps raise questions about equity and compensation, particularly when considering factors such as screen time, character importance, and contribution to the franchise's overall success. It's worth noting that some MCU actors have publicly acknowledged the complex nature of these negotiations without expressing outright dissatisfaction. Benedict Cumberbatch, who portrays Doctor Strange, has spoken about the business aspects of joining such a massive franchise while maintaining that he feels fairly compensated. Similarly, Paul Bettany, Vision, has discussed the evolution of his contract from a voice role as Jarvis to a full character with increased compensation, illustrating the potential for positive growth within the system. However, as evidenced by Jeremy Renner's recent statements, not all actors feel that their compensation has evolved appropriately with their contribution to the franchise. His rejection of what he described as an insult offer for Hawkeye Season 2 suggests that despite Disney's immense resources, there remains a tension between maximizing profitability and ensuring talent feels valued appropriately. This tension becomes particularly pronounced when considering the overall financial success of the MCU. As of 2025, the franchise has generated over $30 billion in global box office revenue, not including merchandise sales, theme park attractions, and the substantial value added to Disney's streaming platform. Against this backdrop of extraordinary financial success, offers that actors perceive as inadequate can appear particularly egregious. But financial disputes aren't the only area where Disney and its Marvel stars have found themselves at odds. In recent years, several MCU actors have publicly expressed disagreement with Disney CEO Bob Iger on various issues, from labor disputes to creative decisions. These conflicts add another dimension to the complex relationship between the studio and its talent roster. One notable example is Tatiana Maslany, who portrayed She-Hulk in the Disney Plus series of the same name. During the 2023 writers and actors strikes, Maslany criticized Iger as being completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content. She particularly highlighted the wealth disparity, pointing out that Disney's prosperity was not adequately shared with crew, cast, and writers. Her comments were part of a broader industry backlash against Iger's statements during the labor disputes, which many perceived as dismissive of striking workers' concerns. Similarly, Sean Gunn, who plays Kraglin and serves as the on-set reference for Rocket in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, publicly criticized Iger's remarks during the strikes. Speaking from the picket lines, Gunn directly addressed the massive pay disparity within Disney, stating, "I think when Bob Iger talks about what a shame it is, he needs to remember that in the 1980s, CEOs like him made 30 times more than what the lowest worker was making. Now Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is, and I think that's a Gee, shame, Bob." Even Iman Vellani, star of The Marvels, has indirectly expressed disagreement with Iger. When asked about her film's disappointing box office performance, Vellani shifted responsibility to the CEO, stating simply, "That's for Bob Iger," and emphasizing that the results had nothing to do with me. While less confrontational than the comments from Maslany or Gunn, Vellani's statement nonetheless reflected a willingness to publicly distance herself from corporate disappointments and place accountability at the executive level. These examples demonstrate that financial disputes like Renner's exist within a broader context of tensions between Disney leadership and Marvel talent. The relationship between the studio and its stars appears increasingly strained across multiple dimensions, from compensation to broader industry issues like labor rights and creative direction. Perhaps most tellingly, even Bob Iger himself has acknowledged shortcomings in Marvel's recent trajectory. The bigger picture: Disney CEO Bob Iger and the future of the MCU. Bob Iger, who returned as Disney's CEO in November 2022 after previously serving from 2005 to 2020, has been a transformative figure in the company's history. Under his initial tenure, Disney acquired Pixar 2006, Marvel Entertainment 2009, Lucasfilm 2012, and 21st Century Fox 2019, dramatically expanding the company's intellectual property portfolio and establishing its dominant position in the entertainment industry. Since his return in late 2022, Iger has focused on reorganizing Disney into three branches: Disney Entertainment, Parks, Experiences, characters and products, and ESPN. His leadership has been particularly focused on transforming Disney's streaming business and restoring creativity at the company's core goals that directly impact Marvel Studios' operations and output. However, Iger's leadership style and public comments have occasionally put him at odds with talent, particularly during periods of industry unrest. A prime example of this tension emerged during the 2023 Writers Guild of America (WGA) and Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists (SAG-AFTRA) strikes, when Iger made comments that many industry professionals, including Marvel stars, found dismissive of legitimate concerns. In a particularly notable interview, Iger described the strikes as very disturbing and characterized the expectations of writers and actors as just not realistic. Let's examine his exact words.
Speaking of content, we're in the midst of a writer's strike, and very likely it would seem to have a actor's strike. How is that going to impact things, and what are your expectations there?
Well, I think it's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges that we're facing and the recovery from COVID, which is ongoing. It's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption.
And when directly asked if the writers and actors were not being realistic, Iger responded affirmatively.
So they're not being realistic?
No, they're not.
Why not?
I can't answer that question. I respect their right and their desire to get as much as they possibly can in compensation for their people. I completely respect that. I've been around long enough to understand that dynamic and to appreciate it. But you also have to be realistic about the business environment and what this business can deliver.
These comments sparked immediate backlash from many in the entertainment industry, including several Marvel stars. As mentioned earlier, Tatiana Maslany, who portrays She-Hulk, criticized Iger as completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content, while Sean Gunn highlighted the 400-to-1 pay disparity between Iger and Disney's lowest-paid workers. The strikes eventually concluded with new agreements that addressed many of the union's concerns, including protections against AI usage and improved streaming residuals. However, Iger's comments during this period created lasting tension between Disney leadership and the creative community, including many Marvel actors who participated in the strikes. This backdrop of labor disputes provides important context for understanding Jeremy Renner's salary negotiation. While Renner's situation predates the 2023 strikes, it reflects similar concerns about fair compensation in an evolving entertainment, a landscape. Renner specifically pointed to Disney's penny pinchers rather than Marvel Studios as the source of his frustration, suggesting that financial decisions at the corporate level are creating friction with talent. Beyond labor disputes, Iger has also made comments about Marvel's content strategy that have raised eyebrows among fans and industry observers. In December 2023, he suggested that the substance of MCU stories was partly to blame for box office struggles, particularly emphasizing what he perceived as too much focus on messages rather than entertainment. These comments drew criticism from creative figures like Peter Ramsey, co-director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, who defended the Marvels against Iger's implications. Fan discussions on platforms like Reddit also pushed back against Iger's framing, with many arguing that quality storytelling rather than ideological messaging was the primary concern for audiences. More recently, in February 2024, Iger outlined a plan to focus on larger MCU franchises as a strategy to save the superhero universe, indicating a potential shift toward more established characters and properties. This direction might have implications for newer characters and more experimental projects, potentially affecting the MCU's diversity of storytelling. Against this backdrop of strategic shifts and public statements, Disney's offer to Jeremy Renner takes on additional significance. Offering half the previous salary to an original Avenger could be interpreted as part of a broader strategy to reduce talent costs, particularly for Disney Plus productions. If true, this would align with reports that Marvel has been aiming to decrease tentpole actor salaries in Phase 4 and beyond. But while cost control might make sense from a pure business perspective, it risks alienating the very talent that has made the MCU successful. Fan reactions to Renner's revelation have been overwhelmingly supportive of the actor, with many expressing disappointment in Disney's approach. Comments on social media posts reporting the dispute show strong sentiment in Renner's favor, with users urging Disney to pay that man his money and criticizing the studio for what they perceive as disrespect toward an original Avenger. The timing of the offer is particularly notable given Renner's recovery from his near-fatal accident. Many fans have pointed out that offering a reduced salary to an actor who has endured significant physical trauma seems especially tone-deaf. As one ex-user commented, disappointing that Disney won't pay an OG Avenger to return, especially after what he's gone through to get back to acting. This brings us to the crucial question: what could these disputes mean for the future of the MCU? Several potential impacts are worth considering. First, there's the immediate question of Hawkeye's future in the franchise. If Jeremy Renner permanently steps away due to compensation disagreements, the most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Disney Plus series already established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. If Renner were to leave, Marvel would miss his experience and depth as an actor who has portrayed Hawkeye for over a decade. His depiction of Clint Barton as a relatable, grounded hero with a family life has added valuable contrast to the more fantastical elements of the MCU. Additionally, his established chemistry with other Avengers actors has contributed significantly to the ensemble dynamic that has been central to the franchise's success. However, there are indications that despite the Hawkeye series dispute, Renner may still be involved in other MCU projects. As mentioned earlier, he has hinted at appearing in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. This suggests that while television negotiations have reached an impasse, his character might continue to appear in theatrical releases. Beyond the specific issue of Hawkeye's future, these disputes highlight broader challenges facing the MCU as it navigates its second decade. The franchise is currently in a period of transition, with many original stars having departed or taking on reduced roles. This creates a delicate balance between honoring legacy characters and establishing new ones, a balance that could be disrupted by contentious salary negotiations with veteran actors. For more content like this, click on the videos showing on your screen now.